Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06 here on O'Connor and Company in this Friday morning that is flying by at record speed, but that's sort of every day right now as we charge up to Election Day. We're going to wrap up this week the way you expect with news, information, analysis, a few laughs, and a review of the new Chicken Big Mac. That's right. Everything you want to start your day. Also at 7:35, Bram Weinstein of ESPN 630. He's going to give us a preview of the Battle of the Beltway as the Commanders head up I-95 to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. And then at 8:35, Representative Mike Waltz of Florida give us an update on the hurricane recovery efforts down there. We might dabble in some presidential politics as well. I'm Larry O'Connor, and that right there is the effervescent Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Amen. Happy Friday to you as well. Joining us is Peter Doocy, senior White House correspondent for Fox News Channel. And Peter, you've had a heck of a week. I appreciate you carving out some time for us this morning.
Thank you, Larry and Patrice. Greetings from Pittsburgh International Airport.
Oh, Pittsburgh International. Well, wherever are you actually walking through the airport because your connection just dropped a little bit?
I am. I'm just through the TSA, so I am just walking towards the window so that it'll hold up.
Good. Well, we'll try to get right to it then. I know you've already spoken about this a bit, but I want to revisit it a little bit, Peter, because I think it deserves some attention. You asked the White House Press Secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, a very fact-based and relevant question. We know that the Secretary of Homeland Security is on record saying that he fears that they're going to run out of funds for hurricane relief. We also know that nearly $1 billion has been spent on transportation and sheltering of illegal immigrants and migrants in this country through that same Department of Homeland Security. We also had announcements of other funds in the administration's budget, including over $150 million given to Lebanon for relief from the Israel incursions and other efforts that they're trying to do for other nations. So, Peter, I think it's very relevant to ask, what does this tell us about the priorities of the administration? You were met with an accusation of misinformation. And have you ever gotten a clear explanation from this White House accusing you basically of lying in your question? Because there was nothing in that question that was not a fact.
No, and, I have talked to some White House officials afterwards, and I was getting questions like, well, why are you, the federal government spends money every day on lots of things. Why are you talking about disaster aid versus money for Lebanon? And it's like, I'm not talking about it. The vice president is posting about that while people in North Carolina are trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And at no point did I say that the money is not going to be there for these people in Western North Carolina, or that $750 is going to be the max. I was asking about why the system is set up in such a way that Congress has to come back to approve extra money for these disaster victims. They do not have to come back for the money for people in Lebanon. The check was already cut.
Yeah.
And that was the question. It was not misinformation. And if you notice, a lot of these White House staffers and the official accounts that will post on their social channels and elsewhere things from the briefing room to try to get their side out there. I didn't see anybody out there saying, oh, well, this is misinformation and this is why.
That's right. That's what they never do that. They say this is the specific misinformation and here's the actual fact. And by the way, I just want you to know, Peter, yesterday on this show, we had Brian Kavanaugh, a former official from Homeland Security and FEMA, and I raised the same question, and he said, ironically, Karine Jean-Pierre claiming that Congress needs to come back and, quote, do their job to free up money for the SBA loans and other things, that's misinformation. That she was the one peddling misinformation. Congress does not have to come back for them to be able to shuffle money around right now, and then Congress eventually will be able to. They do it all the time, Peter.
They do, and it's a tedious process, but it's possible. Mm-hmm. And so that was the whole heart of the question, like, why? Just explain. I'm not here to have to accuse you guys of anything. But if you want to have a long discussion about the appropriations process, I'm happy to, just if that's the answer.
Well, I wish that would be the case. Have you received any feedback, any congratulations, or any support, I should say, from other members of the White House press pool over, how you were treated and and the questions you were asked being called misinformation?
I'm not.
Wow.
Amazing. I don't know. It's this trend of uncomfortable questions that are accurate being categorized as misinformation. I mean, this is a trend that happens so often now with this White House.
And it reminds me of a couple months ago when there were these videos that showed President Biden in ways that they did not want him shown.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And we were told, well, that's a cheap fake. It's deceptively edited to everything. Were there clips that were deceptively edited out there? Sure. Was that every clip? No. Yeah. And they are just I hope, as these briefings continue for the next couple of months, that other questions are not just dismissed as misinformation.
This is Peter Doocy. You recognize his very recognizable voice, of course, as the senior White House correspondent from Fox News Channel. You said you're in Pittsburgh. Were you there for the Barack Obama event for the Harris campaign?
I was, yes.
I'd love for you to give us a first, because I was shocked. I saw video clips of it, but at no point was there a large shot of the room. Obama is used to, especially when it's campaign time, crunch time, final weeks like this, where he's in an arena, or he's in an outdoor setting where what was the size of the room and how many people were there?
There were thousands of people, and they had all been on their feet, standing, most of them, for at least 4 hours before he came out. And so they had the Pittsburgh University of Pittsburgh track and field field house, which I think the capacity is like 4,200. I'm not sure how they increased it based on all the people that were on the floor level standing.
But it was on a college campus. That's very interesting that it was a college campus.
But I would say a majority was activist Democrat types from the Pittsburgh area as opposed to college students. It was
Gotcha.
It seemed like a lot of people who were invited to come.
Interesting.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, for the next few weeks that we have left in the campaign, do you see President Biden going out on the trail at all, or is he just going to be stationary and using the hurricane's response as a reason just to keep him kind of on a leash and in the White House?
That's a good question. The campaign is celebrating the beginning of trips for Obama, and they just announced that Bill Clinton is going to be out there for them. They're really not talking much about Joe Biden. And I noticed last night, unless I missed some huge tribute to Joe Biden, I didn't hear his name out of Barack Obama's mouth until about 30-plus minutes in, and it was just a passing reference to comparing Hurricane Milton rhetoric from Biden and Harris to Trump and Vance. And so he is, as sad as it is for people at the White House, he is kind of an afterthought for them, for the Harris campaign.
Well, listen, Peter, I know I'm shocked that they've got you doing campaign coverage and flying to Pittsburgh and then back to D.C. for White House briefings. You're all over the place.
Yeah.
I guess you're not really going to be a husband and dad for the next 4 weeks until we get to the election.
The beautiful thing about where they go, these 7 battleground states, a lot of the places like North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, they're all like a 40-minute flight back.
Oh, all right.
And so
it's manageable. All right. Well, we worry because you got little ones, and then when you're home talking to us, we like to hear them, whining and complaining in the background. It humanizes you, Doocy.
Well, next time I promise I'll have a toddler looking for her breakfast.
We will hold that. We will hold you to that. Peter, thank you. Travel well.
Peter.
We'll see you, and keep up the great work. And every time they say that you're peddling in misinformation, you're right over the target. So just double down with another follow-up, man. We got your back.
Thanks, Larry and Patrice. I'll talk to you guys soon.
7:15.
Traffic and weather brought to you by Hadid Carpet Cleaning.
Speaking of clear skies but cold weather, did you see the aurora borealis last night, Patrice?
No, we had it in our skies. Or you could see it from our skies.
DC,
really?
Yeah, I was in an event over at the Army Navy Country Club there for Dr. Jennifer London and her great book, Profiles in Character, and a great turnout. I missed it, but I called Meredith on my way home. And she said, "Oh my God!" And so something a weird electromagnetic atmospheric condition occurred where the aurora borealis, the northern lights, were visible as far south as here in D.C. And
that's amazing.
She went out. She got some pictures of it. It incredible, right in our neighborhood, and everyone was out.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen again tonight. I hope it does, but
I've seen it in Alaska. It's breathtaking. It is incredible.
I've been to Alaska several times, but I've never seen the aurora borealis, and I really want to. So even if I have to do it in my front yard, I'm looking forward to that. I hope it happens again. Let's focus real fast on an interesting trend in American politics, specifically with the Catholic vote. For a while there, the Catholic vote was kind of rock solid in the Democrats' favor. Partly because of big party political machines in the cities of New York and Boston, where the political machine was very much entrenched with the Irish and Italian Catholic immigrants there. And they sort of had party bosses that they would count on, and there's a lot of corruption there as well. Then when John Kennedy became our very first president as a Catholic, he just became such an icon for American Catholics. And remember, this was before social issues that rip at the heart of Catholic ideology and Catholic beliefs became political issues. Kennedy was able to be a Catholic president without really having a stand on abortion. That's not the case anymore. Now, American Catholics have to suffer with the fact that we have a Catholic president who defies teachings on such a fundamental issue like the right to life, that it really does. It's a scandal for Catholics to actually identify with this man as a Catholic and a high-profile Catholic president. Ditto Nancy Pelosi. Ditto every Cuomo out there. Yeah. It goes on and on. Well, now we've got an interesting turn of events. First of all, Donald Trump is married to a very devout Catholic woman. He has also chosen in his running mate, J.D. Vance, who is a recent convert to Catholicism. And anyone who is Catholic who knows a convert, they know that the converts are more Catholic than those of us who were cradle Catholics.
Yes.
So Kamala Harris is seeing major decline in support from Catholic voters. Polling shows right now her approval among Catholics underwater. Trump is now leading her 52 to 47%. That is the first time in my lifetime that I can remember a Republican leading in the Catholic vote. And if you talk about devout Catholics who actually go to church on a regular basis and attend Mass, it's not even close.
Well, what do you attribute it to, Larry? Because I'm going to guess it could be the extreme positions on abortion that we've seen the Kamala Harris support. Maybe it's the extreme, maybe it's the undercutting of traditional families, the two-parent households, and so the policies that have done that. The educational school parental policies that are driving a wedge between parents and their children. I'm trying to think through what could those real motivating issues be.
Yes, and yes. All of the above, if I may. And one other distinction here. See, Biden has all those same policies and those same issues, but he can BS his way through it. He can he would present himself to Catholic voters in America saying, listen, I believe everything you believe. I follow the church's teachings in my private life. But as an elected official, sometimes I need to set that aside and not just be a Catholic who holds elected office. I can't inject my personal religious beliefs onto the body politic. And he got away with that. Okay. Kamala Harris can't get away with it. First of all, she seems hostile to all organized religion, whether it's Catholic or not. Yeah. But she actually has a bit of a legacy here. She went after the Knights of Columbus back in her political past. She's, let's not forget, went out of her way to snub the Al Smith dinner, which is one of the highest profile Catholic political events of the year. She can't, just like Barack Obama and Joe Biden, she's just as extreme as they are, but she doesn't have the gift of faking it and BSing. And she seems to be outwardly hostile to Catholic voters. And so I think that that's a big part of it. During the confirmation process of Justice Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, she raised the Catholicism of Amy Coney Barrett. Josh Hawley called her out on it, but at the time, She said, I'm quoting, "Were you aware that the Knights of Columbus opposed a woman's right to choose when you joined the organization? Were you aware that the Knights of Columbus opposed marriage equality when you joined the organization?" And the answer is, well, yeah. Oh, by the way, this was not Amy Coney Barrett. This was a judicial nominee, Brian Boucher, because Knights of Columbus is a men's organization. Okay. And Mr. Boucher said, yes, I was aware of all those things because it's a Catholic organization. It's not just Knights of Columbus. Yeah. It's the Catholic magisterium. It's their entire teaching. So she's got a history of that. By the way, real fast, and this has to be really fast. Yesterday, Harrison Butker, high-profile hero field goal kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, and a very, very out-of-the-closet, in-your-face, pro-life Catholic. He was on the campaign trail yesterday for Josh Hawley and with J.D. Vance. So this is a thing.
That's a man right there. If you're looking for a man to pull out on the campaign trail, you got him.
It's 7:23.
Making sense of your world.
Something you just don't hear anywhere else.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news. Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:37 here on this Friday morning in your nation's capital. Thanks for making it through the week with us. Coming up at 8:35, Representative Mike Waltz of Florida is going to give us an update on the hurricane recovery efforts in his state, and we may dabble into some presidential politics. It's always a possibility. That's coming up. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Happy Friday, Larry.
Yes, and to you as well. Friday means a couple of things, especially this time of year. To me, it means it's time for the football weekend. Navy has the day off tomorrow, but there's going to be plenty of other great college games. But this week, the dominant story is the Battle of the Beltway, where your Washington Commanders make their way to Baltimore. Commanders 4-1, Ravens 3-2. So clearly, Washington is a better team. Remind me again, Patrice, because I know you live in Maryland. You're in Prince George's County, but we both live in Maryland. But are you a Ravens fan?
Well, I'm not. However, I go to a church that's closer to BWI, and so both the leadership and a lot of the church, I'm surrounded.
They all dress in purple and black as they worship the Lord. That's annoying.
And they pray for the Ravens to win on Sundays. It's interesting. It's fun.
Well, they can pray all they want, but Bram Weinstein's here to explain how the Commanders are going to go up there and throw a little Edgar Allan Poe throwdown there in Baltimore. Right, Bram? Right?
Let's see. We're praying for a win. We're writing poems about a win. All right. I like listen, I like this. We're back, if that's what we're talking about. I like it.
Yeah, that's for sure. The atmosphere at Northwest was amazing on Sunday. Seriously, so joyful and just excited, the fans, that they really were engaged in the game. And every time Jaden Daniels snaps the ball, everyone's sort of, what's he going to do? What's going to happen next? But the Ravens are a lot they may have originally been the Cleveland Browns, but they're a lot different than the Cleveland Browns from last Sunday.
Yep, they've been in the playoffs 5 of the last 6 years, 15 of the last 24. They are one of the most stable and successful franchises in the NFL. And I think, frankly, if you ask Adam Peters and Josh Harris and Dan Quinn, that's the group they'd like to emulate. That what they're starting here is hopefully what they're going to build is what the Ravens have built. They have a really, really great franchise with a unicorn quarterback. They win a lot of games. They're extremely tough to defend, and they're in it. Every single year they're consistent. And so while this feels like, to me, kind of the first big game of this new era, and I really can't wait to see what it looks like with this team against that team, this is old hat for them. I mean, this is their third big game in 3 weeks, and that's what we hope to aspire to, is to be that team where every week feels like a big game for the other team.
And Bram, Baltimore had a tough start, starting 0-2, and everyone's like, oh, what's wrong with the Ravens? And now they're definitely bringing it. However, is it fair? We kind of have an apples-to-apples comparison because they just won a nail-biter overtime victory against the Bengals, which the Bengals did whatever they could to sort of mess that game up. And meanwhile, the Commanders played that very same Bengals team on Monday Night Football, and yes, it was a high-scoring affair, but they seemed to handle it quite well on the road in Cincinnati. Can we look at that and sort of see a roadmap maybe for this Sunday's matchup?
Sure, Super Bowl matchup, right? This is what that's where we're going to end up. So, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think it's kind of different points in the season for sure. Like, for Washington, the win up at Cincinnati was kind of, I think it was a proving point. And the way I kind of look at it was really the beginning of something. Like, the moment where Jaden Daniels found Terry McLaurin on that crazy pass late in the game and sealed it was like kind of the first moment of we have something special that's starting here. 2 weeks later, they've played their two best performances by far, both sides of the ball, and they're really kind of rolling into this. Baltimore's kind of ramping back up. Like, they had a really slow start, a really unusual loss to Las Vegas at home. That's very, like, they've got the third best win percentage over the last 25 years up there. So it was a very unusual loss to a bad team. And they've kind of turned back around to where their offense is where I think everyone expected them to be. They're terrific rush offense, best in the NFL. And their defense actually is unusually porous right now. They're bottom 5 in pass defense this year. It's very unusual for them. But I have a feeling because, this goes back to the original part of the conversation, they're going to fix it because they always do. And I think that they're kind of getting back into a place where they're finding themselves, and maybe Washington's kind of catching them at the right time. I know they've won 3 in a row, but their defense is ranked in the bottom third of the league. Washington's offense could not be playing better over the last 3 weeks. If you play this game in a couple of months, I'm not sure where the Ravens are defensively, and it might be a different outcome.
All right. So that said, it is a road game. It's in Baltimore. As you said, the Ravens are a very, very good team. It's definitely the toughest test yet for this team.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, last week, I'd argue right now that Cleveland's defense is better than Baltimore's, but that's right now. Cleveland's offense is not, so that's a very different conversation.
It's certainly the running game. I mean, Derrick Henry looks like he's just a new man now in playing in Baltimore than he was in Tennessee.
Yes, this is the really, really unusual thing that could happen this year. This team, Baltimore, could have back-to-back MVPs on their team. Would be different players. I mean, that's a very, very rare situation. Lamar Jackson obviously is the reigning MVP. He's done it twice. Derrick Henry already has over 500 yards rushing, so he's on pace for about 1,700. That's a humongous number, but he's a one-on-one. I mean, this is his 125th game. He's hit metrics that only people like Jim Brown have hit. So he's a unicorn player too. He's rejuvenated there, and their running game is everything. They average over 200 yards a game. It's a ridiculous number. I kind of when you say how are they going to stop it, they aren't. The question is, can they limit it? And in the past, if you said hold anybody to 150 yards for the game on the ground, you're doing okay. That's crazy, and it's not typically a path to victory, but against them, it might be.
All right, Bram, I'm calling it right now. It's going to be a shootout, but Jaden Daniels is going to put another page in his legend book for his rookie season. He's going to win it in the 2-minute drive in the final seconds of the game. There you go. That's what's going to happen.
He does that. The hymns and the prayer books are going to change to burgundy and gold up there.
That's right. We've got God on our side, Weinstein. All right. Thanks, man. Good talk. Enjoy the game. This is a blast. All right. Take care.
It is going to be a good one. Thank you. Bye.
7:44. By the way, of course, you can hear Bram Weinstein on our sister station, ESPN.
Miss anything? Don't worry. We've got you covered. Get today's breaking news on the Vince Colonnese Show, weekdays 3 to 6, right here on WMAL.
All right, so last night was a big debate here in Maryland between former Governor Larry Hogan and Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks. We know it's for the Maryland Senate seat. This is a nationally watched contest because obviously this could determine the math between Republicans and Democrats in the Senate. And so one of the big issues, it obviously came down to abortion. Let's hear what Larry Hogan had to say, what Alsobrooks had to say about Larry Hogan's position. Cut 24, Michael.
Democrats who were talking about expanding the Supreme Court from 9 justices to 13. And the idea is...
Sorry, let's play cut 23. Sorry.
And it's based on lies. I said this has been her whole entire campaign is based on lies. I said this earlier. I have been against... The first day I got in the race, she said I was going to be the deciding vote for abortion ban, which I've been against since 1992. When I ran for governor, I promised to provide access to abortion that would do nothing to change law. That's exactly what I delivered on for 8 years. Everybody in Maryland knows that. When 5 or 6 years ago, I said Roe was the correct decision. When it was overturned, I said it was the wrong decision. And I said, when I get to the Senate, the very first vote, my first bill I will sponsor is to codify Roe. So, no, I don't understand. It's completely false.
So what you have here, Larry, is really Angela Alsobrooks really had Larry Hogan on defense last night, defending whether he would be a sure Republican vote for a potential Donald Trump agenda, and what he would do for abortion. I think, listen, this is a tighter race than it should be, although she leads him by 9 points.
Yeah, I don't think it's a tight race.
It's tighter than it should be for a state that has Democrats outnumber Republicans by 2-1. What do you think that last night changed any opinions, particularly those independents?
Yeah, I think that also Brooks attacked him on abortion and she said, I'm pro-abortion. I'm going to make sure that abortion can stay legal. And then it came Larry Hogan's time to talk, and he said, no, I'm even more pro-abortion. Are you kidding me? I love abortion more than Angela Alsobrooks. You bet. So now if you're a voter in Maryland and you care about abortion, first of all, if you don't like abortion, you have no option, all right?
Yeah.
And if you want to make sure abortion is going to be, available at any moment, you're going to vote for Angela Alsobrooks because Larry Hogan spent so much time trying to reassure Marylanders that he loves abortion just as much as Angela Alsobrooks that he didn't get to the point to talk about what would make him different.
Exactly.
And what does differentiate. And one other thing. She went after him for saying that he wasn't going to vote for either Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And I thought this was a very smart strategy from Angela Alsobrooks because she pointed out Larry Hogan is trying to be this third-way guy, middle-of-the-way guy.
Yeah.
I don't like Trump, but I'm also not going to vote for Kamala Harris. And Angela Alsobrooks says, you know what? Most Americans don't have that luxury. We don't have that benefit. We have to make a choice. I'm making a choice, and I'm voting for Kamala Harris. Larry Hogan, who do you stand for? If you stand for nothing, then you don't stand for anything. And Larry Hogan's inability to articulate who he actually stands for and what kind of Republican he will be leaves the impression that the only person Larry Hogan stands for is Larry Hogan and his own personal political ambition. I really want him to win, but his inability to explain why people should vote for him means that people are going to vote for the other person.
Well, yeah, he didn't make a compelling case. And there are so many issues. Even looking at my county and PG County, crime, he could have focused on crime. He could focus on he could focus on his executive experience, and he keeps missing the opportunity. So if he loses, it's totally because he didn't really try.
He didn't even bring up Angela Alsobrooks' hypocrisy for raising taxes on PG County residents while cheating on taxes herself.
Thank you.
I mean, it's low-hanging fruit.
Thank you.
The good news is Republicans are going to win the majority. They don't need Larry Hogan. They're winning West Virginia.
Yeah. They're
winning Montana. And now they're tied in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania is almost tied as well. Those are all flips for Republicans. Larry Hogan ain't going to do it. Larry Hogan ran because he thought he was going to run against David Trone, and he probably would have won. Now it's a whole other game. Sadly, I'm a Marylander. I would love to have a Republican represent me in the Senate, but I don't see Larry Hogan pulling this out.
Well, unfortunately, I do want to get rid of Angela Alsobrooks in my county, but this is not the way. All right, it's 7:55.